Welcome back to another deep dive into the shadows of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where tonight we're unraveling the complete, unbroken story of Foxy, the tattered pirate animatronic whose yellow eyes have pierced through the darkness of security offices for decades. From the moment those purple curtains first parted in 1983 to reveal a crimson fox with a gleaming hook and tales of high seas adventure, to the vengeful spirit that would drain power generators and send guards scrambling for door controls in desperate midnight hours, Foxy's journey is one of transformation, tragedy, and relentless pursuit. We'll trace every step of this haunted buccaneer's path, from cheerful entertainer to possessed sentinel, through withered hallways and nightmare closets, virtual repairs and infernal corn mazes, until we reach the flames that may have finally freed a restless soul. Whether you're discovering Foxy's secrets for the first time, or returning to nights you've survived only in memory, this journey will immerse you in the full timeline of curtain peeks, hallway sprints, and the spectral fury of a child's stolen life, bound to machinery. Before we begin our descent into Pirate Cove's shadows, feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of slow, immersive storytelling that drifts through the forgotten corners of Fazbear lore and the quiet hours between midnight and 6 a.m. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. There's something haunting and beautiful about knowing this same story is weaving through different corners of the world, one quiet night at a time, connecting us all through these shared digital nightmares. Let's begin. The year is 1983, and the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opens its doors to families seeking entertainment, pizza, and the magic of animatronic performances. The scent of melting cheese mingles with the electric buzz of arcade cabinets, and children's laughter echoes off checkered floors as Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy take their places. But while the main band performs together on the central stage, Foxy occupies a different space entirely. Tucked away in the West Hall, behind purple curtains decorated with stars and sparkles, sits Pirate Cove, a dedicated performance area designed to offer something unique, something intimate, something that would set this fox apart from his bandmates from the very beginning. Foxy's design was intentional in every detail. Crimson fur, weathered and tattered even in these early days to evoke a pirate's rugged life at sea, wraps around an imposing fox-like frame. 3 strands of red hair stand atop his head, and pointy ears rise sharply, articulated for minor tilts during performances. But it's the accessories that truly complete the swashbuckling aesthetic. A sharp hook affixed to the right hand, curving outward in polished steel, while the left hand reveals bare endoskeleton fingers, the fabric covering already showing signs of wear. Brown linen pants, shredded especially at the legs, drape the lower frame. An eye patch crafted from durable black fabric sits positioned over the right eye, designed to flip upward dramatically during routines to reveal the hidden glow beneath. And those eyes, those yellow eyes set deep within a speckled muzzle dotted with black freckles, engineered with internal LEDs for a piercing stare that would illuminate during activation sequences, drawing attention in the dim ambiance of Pirate Cove. Bushy red eyebrows arch to convey a perpetual sly expression, and beneath them, dual rows of jagged teeth fill Foxy's muzzle, upper and lower sets designed for expressive performances. Golden caps sheath select canines, catching stage lights during routines to nod at pirate treasure, making them gleam like coins from a plundered chest. This wasn't just an animatronic. This was a character, a personality, a living story designed to captivate children who would cluster before those purple curtains, watching Foxy enact tales of high seas chases through synchronized gestures and pre-recorded dialogue. The performances were carefully choreographed. The curtains would part dramatically to reveal Foxy in a heroic pose, hook extended, as recorded shanties played through speakers. The animatronic would bow deeply before rushing forward in enthusiastic strides toward groups of children amid colorful balloons and party hats scattered across the tiled floor. Parents lingered nearby, drawn by the quieter ambiance compared to the main band's loud concerts. Foxy's shows were exclusive, intimate, building loyalty through experiences that differentiated Pirate Cove from standard animatronic fare. The routines involved programmed loops calibrated for safe movement arcs, with Foxy holding just short of the audience, that static smile implying laughter and joy, those golden teeth flashing in the stage lights. But even in these early days, there were signs of the deterioration to come. The crimson fur showed deliberate rips along the torso and limbs, exposing glimpses of the metallic endoskeleton beneath. Whether this was intentional theming or early wear from the animatronic's mechanical stress, the exposed framework caught the faint glow of security lights even then, casting elongated shadows that hinted at something beyond the cheerful performer. The endoskeleton technology itself was robust, built to withstand the demands of family entertainment. But the absence of routine maintenance would prove costly as the years progressed. For 2 years, Foxy performed. For 2 years, those curtains parted and closed on schedule. For 2 years, children cheered and parents smiled and pizza was served and tokens clinked in arcade machines. For 2 years, Pirate Cove was exactly what it was designed to be, a place of adventure, imagination, and innocent joy. And then came 1985. The missing children incident shattered everything. On a crowded afternoon, when the pizzeria was filled with party tables laden with half-eaten slices and scattered balloons, when the din of arcade beeps and laughter created a wall of sound that masked darker movements, William Afton donned a yellow rabbit spring Bonnie suit and stepped into the back rooms with deliberate calm. This figure, who would later be known as the Purple Guy, moved through the pizzeria like a shadow, lurking at the edges of celebrations, blending into the animatronic lineup as he beckoned to children one by one. 5 children followed those gestures. Gabriel, Jeremy, Susie, Fritz, and Cassidy, drawn away from their parties by the suit's cheerful fabric and familiar appearance. Security cameras overlooked the back halls where this unfolded, their lenses focused on main areas while these corridors remained shadowed. Employees continued serving trays, unaware of the vanishing happening steps away from their stations. The children disappeared, their absences noted gradually as parents searched booths and prize counters in growing panic, their voices rising above the arcade noise as the realization set in. The bodies were concealed within the animatronic suits themselves. Pressed into the frames of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy, masked amid the pizzeria's clutter and the everyday presence of these performers. Fritz, the 4th child, was placed inside Foxy's crimson shell, his small form hidden within the endoskeleton structure, the hook and eye patch becoming a tomb marker that no one would recognize. Staff locked up at closing that night, oblivious to the weighted suits now resting heavier in their designated spots. The animatronics stood silent on their stages, but something had changed. Something had been added to their mechanical cores that would never be removed. Investigations followed in the weeks after, with posters circulating the children's names and faces, each linked to the pizzeria where they were last seen. Authorities questioned employees, examined the premises, but the case remained unresolved as evidence scattered like confetti in the wind. Families grieved outside while inside. The animatronics waited. Corporate statements from Fazbear Entertainment denied involvement, attributing the losses to unrelated causes, while quietly enhancing door locks and restricting access to certain areas. But the real transformation was happening on a level no one could see, no investigation could uncover, no corporate policy could prevent. In the prize corner, where a striped music box sat atop a counter filled with plush toys and masks, another entity stirred. The marionette, the puppet, Charlotte Emily's spirit trapped within the slender animatronic frame, emerged from its box with a purpose. In the Give Gifts, Give Life minigame that would later reveal these events in pixelated form, we see the marionette gliding across shadowed floors, approaching the slumped forms of the 4 victims scattered in corners of the pizzeria. The puppet distributes gifts, wrapped boxes that glow on contact with each child, stirring them from death's stillness. Then comes the second phase, the one that changes everything. The marionette affixes masks to each form. Freddy's mask, Bonnie's mask, Chica's mask, and Foxy's mask, placed upon Fritz's still face as a 5th body appears briefly before Golden Freddy's mask completes the ritual with his signature jump scare. This was the awakening, the moment when loss became fury, when innocent souls bound to machinery gained the power to move independently, to override programming, to hunt. The Save Them minigame shows this binding process, with each child's head snapping onto their respective animatronic frame, sealing the bond between spirit and steel. Fritz's essence merged with Foxy's endoskeleton, his memories and emotions and confusion flooding into the pirate's circuitry, his rage at the purple-suited figure who lured him becoming the driving force behind every movement that would follow. And so the animatronics became something more than entertainment. They became vessels for vengeance, their programming hijacked by spectral influence, their nightly wanderings no longer random glitches, but purposeful pursuits. At night, when the pizzeria closed and darkness settled over the checkered floors, the animatronics activated. Foxy's yellow eyes flickered to life behind those purple curtains in Pirate Cove, and the mechanism that once bowed for children now stirred with different intent. Phone Guy's recordings, left for night guards in the security office, explain the official reasoning. The animatronics mistake adults for endoskeletons without suits, and attempt to stuff them into spare Freddy suits stored in back rooms, a fatal process that would crush and kill anyone subjected to it. But the truth runs deeper than malfunction. This is Fritz's spirit, confused and angry, seeing the night guard's uniform and mistaking it for the purple figure who ended his life. The guards become targets not because of faulty facial recognition software, but because a dead child's fury cannot distinguish between the killer and the innocent in the darkness. Pirate Cove's mechanics become the stuff of nightmares for anyone who survives a shift. The purple curtains, visible on camera 1C, serve as a threat gauge. At the start of the night, they're fully closed, Foxy standing dormant behind them. But if the guard neglects to check the camera feed, if too many seconds pass without that digital eye focusing on Pirate Cove, the curtains begin to part. First comes the peak, a yellow eye glinting through a small gap, barely visible but unmistakable in its intent. Check the camera again quickly, and the curtains might close back to their neutral position, the threat temporarily delayed. But ignore it. Let time slip away while dealing with Bonnie in the hallway or Chica in the kitchen, and the progression continues. Next, Foxy's head emerges, pushing the curtains wider. That speckled muzzle with its slack jaw and golden-capped teeth fills more of the frame, bushy eyebrows visible, the eye patch askew. The distorted melody begins here, a wordless shanty humming through the speakers, a simple repeating pattern of low notes that grows louder with each stage of exposure. It's the remnant of those daytime performances. The recorded music designed to entertain now serving as an audio warning that death is approaching. If the guard still doesn't maintain proper camera vigilance, the full body appears. Foxy stands completely visible on the Pirate Cove stage. Crimson fur and exposed endoskeleton on full display. Hook raised, both eyes gleaming in the security feed. This is the final warning. This is the moment before everything goes wrong. Because once Foxy fully emerges from Pirate Cove, once those curtains blow open to reveal an empty stage, he's already in motion. The sprint down the West Hall is one of the fastest movement patterns of any animatronic in the original game. While Freddy takes his time creeping through the pizzeria, and Bonnie and Chica navigate rooms methodically, Foxy launches into a full-speed charge that covers the distance from Pirate Cove to the security office in seconds. Guards catch the motion peripherally on camera feeds if they're paying attention. A crimson blur streaking down the corridor, Hook leading. Those exposed endoskeleton legs pumping against tiled floors with mechanical precision. The sound is unmistakable. Rapid footsteps echo through the office speakers, growing louder as Foxy approaches. There's only one defense. Slam the left door shut before he arrives. The timing has to be perfect, because Foxy doesn't pause, doesn't slow, doesn't give second chances. If the door closes in time, he crashes into it with audible force, that hook banging against steel as he assaults the barrier briefly, before retreating back to Pirate Cove to reset and try again. But keeping the door closed drains power from the central generator, those precious percentage points ticking away as the mechanism strains to hold the barrier against Foxy's assault. Hold it too long, and the power runs out entirely, plunging the office into darkness and leaving the right door vulnerable to Freddy's final approach. The strategy becomes a balancing act. Check camera 1C frequently enough to keep Foxy's curtains from progressing, but not so often that you ignore the other threats. Flip to the camera, confirm the curtains are still closed or only slightly parted. Flip away to check Bonnie's position in the hallway, or confirm Freddy's location on the stage. Every second counts. Every camera transition is a calculated risk. Too much attention on Foxy, and Bonnie appears in your doorway while you're distracted. Too little, and Foxy sprints down the West Hall while you're watching Freddy creep through the dining area. This is Fritz's vengeance playing out in mechanical form. His confusion and rage translated into a gameplay mechanic that has terrified players since 2014. The child who followed a yellow rabbit into a back room, who trusted and died and was stuffed into a pirate costume, now hunts through the same building where his life ended, mistaking purple uniforms for the killer's silhouette, draining power and creating chaos in his desperate attempt to stop the figure he believes is still there, still threatening, still dangerous. But Foxy's story doesn't end with the original pizzeria's closure. As investigations mounted, and odor complaints from patrons sensing faint decay in the air vents became impossible to ignore, Fazbear Entertainment shut down the 1983 location permanently. The animatronics were powered down, tagged for storage, and transported to a new facility where they would sit in darkness for years, neglect compounding the damage already visible in their frames. When Freddy Fazbear's Pizza reopened in 1987 as a grand reopening with new toy animatronics, the original characters were deemed too damaged for public display. Withered Foxy emerged from storage as a testament to years of abandonment. His left ear was stripped completely bare, exposing the endoskeleton beneath the fur. His muzzle had reshaped under decay, the upper jaw speckled with black dots that distorted his pirate grin, while the slack jaw hung perpetually open, revealing those dual rows of teeth with their golden caps still somehow gleaming. The rips in his fur had widened into gaping holes, the tattered crimson now barely clinging to the endoskeleton frame. His limbs maintained intact proportions better than Bonnie's twisted neck or Chica's cupped hands, but the joints flexed with the grinding of corroded servos and unoiled mechanisms. Withered Foxy was relegated to the parts and service room, visible on camera 08 amid crates and dangling wires, surrounded by the disassembled heads of his fellow original animatronics. The room was dimly lit, a tomb of forgotten performers where dust settled over exposed endoskeletons and spare parts littered the floor. But Fritz's spirit remained bound to this decayed frame, and possession doesn't require pristine condition to function. At night, when the new location's systems powered down and the toy animatronics began their own patrols, Withered Foxy stirred in that back room and crept into the left hallway. His pattern in FNAF 2 introduced a new mechanic, the flashlight. Guards in the 1987 location had no doors, just a Freddy mask to fool the toy animatronics, and a flashlight to repel the withered ones. When Withered Foxy advanced down the left corridor, his approach was signaled by scraping sounds, those exposed endoskeleton parts dragging against walls as he moved. If the guard flashed their light down the hall at the right moment, they'd catch him mid-advance, that crimson and bare frame standing in the corridor, hook raised, yellow eyes reflecting the beam. The solution was rapid flashlight pulses, quick on-off sequences that overwhelmed his decayed optical sensors and forced a system restart, sending him recoiling back into the shadows with guttural scrapes of metal on tile. But the timing was crucial. Hold the flashlight on too long, and the battery drained. Flash too little, and Withered Foxy continued his advance, reaching the office window where he'd bang against the opening with that hookless left hand, all exposed endoskeleton fingers and corroded joints. The Freddy mask trick that worked on toy animatronics was useless against him. Withered perception bypassed the disguise entirely, Fritz's spirit recognizing that no mask could hide the truth from someone who'd already seen behind the curtain of Fazbear's lies. Phone Guy's calls in FNAF 2 referenced the bite of 87 during these nights, mentioning how it's amazing the human body can live without the frontal lobe after an animatronic bit a victim during a daytime incident. This event led to the animatronics being restricted from free roaming during operating hours, confined to stages and controlled paths to prevent another attack. The culprit was never officially identified, but Foxy's jaws, with their dual rows of teeth and golden caps, remained suspect. Those teeth, designed for expressive performances and pirate aesthetics, were also primed for hydraulic snapping motions that could activate during movement. Whether Fritz's possessed frame was responsible for removing someone's frontal lobe remains one of FNAF's enduring mysteries, but the connection between Foxy's sharp teeth and the bite's brutality is impossible to ignore. After the 1987 location closed following the incident and investigations, the withered animatronics once again entered storage. But Fazbear Entertainment, operating on a smaller budget and desperate to revive the brand, made the decision to refurbish the originals for one final attempt. In 1993, a new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opened, and classic Foxy emerged from the restoration process. Fresh crimson fur patches covered some of the endoskeleton exposures, and the overall silhouette returned closer to the 1983 design. But the damage was too deep to fully repair. The jaw retained its permanent slack from unaddressed servo failures, that lower mandible dangling loose to expose the inner wiring, and dual rows of teeth in a perpetual partial gape. Golden caps still gleamed amid the rows, catching security camera light in grainy feeds. The rips in the torso and legs remained, though new fabric concealed some of the worst exposures. Pirate Cove was rebuilt in this 1993 location. Purple curtains hung over a black and white tiled stage. The sorry, out-of-order sign affixed in front to keep families away from the decommissioned area. Because by this point, Fazbear Entertainment knew something was wrong. The pattern of night guard incidents, the reports of animatronics moving without power, the complaints and investigations that followed each location's closure, all pointed to problems that couldn't be explained away as malfunctions. So Foxy remained behind that sign, curtains closed during the day, activating only after hours when new guards arrived for their shifts. And the nightmare began again, refined and perfected through years of spectral practice. Camera 1C became the most important feed in the building. The guard would flip to it at the start of their shift and see those purple curtains fully closed, the stage dark except for the faint glow of the two back wall lights and hanging star decorations. Everything seemed calm. But if they looked away for too long, focused too much on tracking Freddy's movements through the dining area or checking whether Bonnie had entered the hallway, those curtains would begin their progression. The mechanics were identical to 1983, but the execution was faster. Neglected camera checks caused the curtains to part more rapidly now, Fritz's spirit growing more aggressive with each revival, each new location, each night guard who sat in that office chair wearing clothes that looked too similar to the purple uniform of his killer. The eye peek came first, yellow glow piercing through the gap. Then the head and torso, that slack jaw visible even in the grainy security footage. Golden teeth flashing like a warning beacon. Then full body exposure, Foxy standing completely visible on the Pirate Cove stage for just a moment before the curtains blew fully open and the stage sat empty. The sprint down the West Hall in 1993 was somehow even faster than before, as if years of practice had honed Fritz's ability to pilot the animatronic frame at maximum velocity. That distorted shanty hummed through the speakers as warning, wordless notes building in volume as Foxy accelerated through the corridor. The guard had mere seconds to react, slamming the left door shut before that hook crashed into it with reverberating force. Each impact drained power exponentially, the generator groaning under the strain as Foxy assaulted the barrier. Hold the door too long and the power hit zero. The lights died, the doors opened. Freddy's music box melody played from the right doorway, and then came the jump scare, the shift ending in failure as another guard fell victim to the haunted pizzeria's endless cycle of vengeance. This was the peak of Foxy's physical hauntings, the culmination of years of possession distilled into a perfect predator/prey mechanic. Fritz's confusion had refined itself into strategy. Appear in stages to build tension, sprint when the target is distracted, drain resources to create vulnerability. The child's rage had become something more calculated, more dangerous, more inevitable. But even as the 1993 location operated, even as guards survived or failed their shifts, and Foxy's curtains continued their deadly progression, another tragedy was unfolding. The discovery of the bodies in the suits, the health violations, the mounting liability, all forced Fazbear Entertainment into its final closure of the classic pizzeria chain. The animatronics were once again powered down, once again tagged for storage, once again left to sit in darkness. The difference this time was that no reopening was planned. The brand was toxic. The locations were cursed. The lawsuits were piling up. Foxy's frame entered storage with the others, crimson fur gathering dust, golden teeth dulling without maintenance. that slack jaw hanging open in the shadow of an abandoned facility. And there he might have remained, another forgotten relic of a failed family entertainment venture, if not for one ill-advised attraction decades later. In 2023, Fazbear's Fright, the horror attraction, opened its doors with a simple premise: capitalize on the dark history of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza by creating a horror maze filled with salvaged relics and props from the closed locations. Charred posters lined dim corridors. Rusted endoskeleton parts hung from the ceiling. Graffiti covered the walls. And toxic fumes from faulty ventilation systems leaked into the air, creating hallucinations in anyone exposed for too long. Phantom Foxy emerged not as a physical animatronic, but as a burnt, translucent hallucination triggered by these toxins. His form was a nightmare version of the withered variant. Crimson fur charred to black, endoskeleton exposed and glowing with spectral energy, that translucent quality making him seem to flicker in and out of existence like a dying monitor. He would appear suddenly on the left side of the security office, standing directly in front of the box of spare animatronic parts that sat in the cramped space, materializing without warning when the guard lowered their monitor or maintenance panel to manage the attraction's systems. The mechanic was cruelly simple. If you didn't raise the monitor or panel immediately upon seeing Phantom Foxy, if you hesitated for even a moment, he would lunge forward with a deafening roar. The jump scare didn't end the night directly, but it triggered a ventilation error on the maintenance panel, causing oxygen levels to plummet and the screen to tint hazy. The guard would have to frantically reboot the system while their vision blurred, and other threats like Springtrap advanced unchecked through the attraction. Each Phantom encounter compounded the risk, errors chaining into failures, system malfunctions creating openings for the real dangers lurking in Fazbear's Fright's deeper halls. Phantom Foxy's existence proved that Fritz's spirit had transcended the physical. Even without a functional animatronic frame, even reduced to hallucination and toxin-induced vision, the pirate's vengeance persisted. The burnt appearance suggested he'd been caught in a fire at some point between the 1993 closure and 2023's salvage operation, his frame destroyed, but his spiritual presence lingering in the very air of any location that bore the Fazbear name. Around the same time, in a completely different realm of horror, a child in 1983 was experiencing nightmares that would reshape how we understood Foxy's terror. Five Nights at Freddy's 4 takes place in a shadowed bedroom where a young boy endures midnight to dawn hours surrounded by plush toys and the looming threat of nightmarish animatronic versions of the characters. Nightmare Foxy claims the left closet as his domain, transforming the pirate into something beyond mechanical decay, beyond possession, into pure, concentrated fear. This variant towers over the child's perspective, blackened, tattered fur clinging to a frame that exposes twisted metal ribs and endoskeleton components that look more like bones than machinery. The teeth are the worst part. Multiple rows of razor-sharp fangs, wet and glistening, filling a massive maw that seems designed for nothing but consumption. The hook remains on the right hand, but it's grown larger, more vicious, a weapon rather than a prop. And instead of yellow eyes, there's just darkness and malevolence, a presence that exists to teach this child what true terror feels like. The closet mechanic requires constant vigilance. Throughout the night, as the child sits on their bed clutching a flashlight, they must occasionally crack open the left closet door and shine the beam inside. In the early stages of Nightmare Foxy's advance, the light reveals him standing in the back of the closet, distant but visible, those yellow eyes catching the beam. Audio cues provide warning. Faint clanging metal sounds that prompt the need to check, escalating to heavy thuds that vibrate the door if too much time passes without a sweep. With each neglected check, Nightmare Foxy advances through 3 stages, moving closer to the closet opening. First stage, visible in the back, but stationary. Second stage, closer, more details visible, the teeth starting to dominate the view. Third stage, right at the closet opening, filling the entire frame with nightmare fuel, jaw agape and ready to lunge. If the child lets him reach this final stage without proper flashlight discipline, if they fail to maintain the rhythm of checks while also managing the right closet's nightmare Fredbear and the hallway's other threats, Nightmare Foxy bursts from the closet with a screech that floods the screen in close-up terror. Those teeth fill the view, the hook swings into frame, and the night resets to the bed as the child presumably wakes from the nightmare in screaming panic. The placement of these nightmares in 1983, the same year as the original pizzeria's opening, creates ambiguous lore connections. Are these literal nightmares experienced by a child who witnessed something terrible? Are they manifestations of guilt or trauma related to the incidents at Fazbear locations? Or are they punishment, spiritual attacks from the very entities whose deaths the dreamer might somehow be connected to? The endless teeth evoke the bite of 87 that wouldn't happen until 4 years later, suggesting these nightmares might be prophetic or temporally displaced in the FNAF timeline's non-linear structure. What's certain is that Nightmare Foxy represents Foxy's horror distilled to its purest form. No mechanics about power conservation or camera management, just primal fear, the monster in the closet, advancing incrementally, demanding constant attention or delivering instant punishment. It's every child's nightmare about what hides in the dark spaces of their bedroom, given metal teeth and a hook and the legacy of a dead child's fury. Meanwhile, in the underground facilities of Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental, William Afton's private robotics operation, a completely different Foxy variant was being deployed for private parties and events. Funtime Foxy emerged as a sleek, modernized version of the Pirate. Pink and white plating with feminine contours, glossy surfaces designed for high mobility performances, and advanced features like motion activation, parental voice sync, and variable scent release. This was Foxy rebuilt for the rental market, stripped of the pirate aesthetic's roughness and repackaged as a more versatile, elegant performer. But elegance didn't mean safety. During Night 3 of the sister location storyline, when the player must cross the pitch-black Funtime auditorium to reach parts and service, Funtime Foxy lurks motion-activated on stage right. The mechanic introduces the flash beacon, a limited-use light source that must be employed sparingly while crossing the wide expanse of empty seating rows. Flash too often, and Funtime Foxy activates, her advanced sensors detecting the light and triggering her pursuit protocols. Flash too little, and you can't orient yourself in the darkness, stumbling blind toward your goal while she potentially closes the distance unseen. The solution is rhythm, short, calculated beacon flashes directed rightward to check her position, holding the light just long enough to confirm she's still on stage or halted by the beam, then continuing forward in darkness. Her faceplates are designed to split wide during performances, but in the context of night terrors, they split to reveal that same predatory maw we've seen in every Foxy variant, the mechanical jaws snapping shut in jump scares that shake the screen with visceral force. Though Funtime Foxy lacks the direct possession connection to Fritz's spirit, the design lineage is unmistakable. This is what Foxy becomes in Afton's hands: a tool for his experiments. A pretty shell hiding the same predatory programming. The pirate's isolated hunting style adapted for dark auditoriums and motion sensor stalking. It's Foxy without the haunting, and somehow that makes it more unsettling, proving that the horror wasn't just Fritz's vengeance, but something inherent in the design itself. The timeline continues forward to Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, Henry Emily's elaborate trap disguised as a restaurant management game. Players, acting as a new pizzeria owner, purchase animatronics from a catalog to populate their establishment. And among the options is Rockstar Foxy, a vibrant, polished version of the classic pirate priced at $2,500. This variant features clean crimson fur with golden accents on the hook and eye patch, a peg leg replacing the left foot to enhance the swashbuckler aesthetic, and a green-feathered parrot with a blue-eyed eye patch perched on the shoulder. Purple accordion straps stretch across the torso, expanding during rock-infused shanty performances that blend pirate themes with the band's musical style. Rockstar Foxy seems harmless in the day-to-day simulator management. He performs on stage, draws customers, boosts atmosphere ratings, and contributes to the pizzeria's success. But the real purpose of Pizzeria Simulator is revealed during the completion ending. Henry has lured all the haunted remnants, all the animatronics containing spirits or dangerous AI, into this single location. The Salvage Knights force the player to bring in Scrap Baby, Molten Freddy, Scrap Trap, and Lefty, sealing them into the building. And when Saturday arrives, when all the pieces are in place, Henry triggers the trap. Fire consumes the corridors. Thermal vents ignite. The structure becomes an inferno with no escape. And Henry's voice plays over the intercom, addressing the spirits trapped within, explaining that this is the end. This is freedom. This is the release they've sought since 1985. The completion ending shows flames engulfing the salvaged animatronics, and among them, purchased and placed innocently on stage, Rockstar Foxy burns. His accordion warps in the heat. His crimson fur chars. His peg leg collapses as the frame melts. And from the destruction, ethereal lights ascend, suggesting the souls are finally freed. The insanity ending, unlocked through specific purchases and actions, reveals gravestones rising from digital soil in a cemetery scene. Each stone is marked with a name and paired with an animatronic. Gabriel with Freddy, Jeremy with Bonnie, Susie with Chica, Fritz with Foxy, and Cassidy with Golden Freddy. This confirms what players had theorized for years. Fritz's spirit was bound to Foxy's frame through the marionette's ritual, his death in 1985 leading directly to every curtain peek, every hallway sprint, every power drain across every location. And now, finally, in Henry's fire, Fritz is free. But is he? Because the story doesn't end with the completion ending. Bad endings exist where salvages are incomplete, where the trap fails, where remnants escape the flames. And even in timelines where purification succeeds, echoes persist. Help Wanted, released in 2019 as a VR collection of mini-games based on the classic FNAF experiences, includes a parts and service mode where players repair classic Foxy in a dimly lit bay. The animatronic lies disassembled on a central table, head detached. Crimson fur desaturated to ghostly gray from simulated neglect. The hand unit voice guides the process. First, place Foxy's head on the endoskeleton. Then retrieve fuses from wall drawers to repair the malfunctioning servos. The leg fuse goes in first, steadying the limb. An incorrect chest fuse must be removed from the upper arm receptacle, where a previous employee installed it wrong. New fuses from drawers 2 and 4 go into the chest cavity to control the upper and lower jaw mechanisms, those golden-capped teeth visible through the slack jaw as sparks fly from misaligned circuits. Finally, the yellow eye is retrieved from drawer 3 and slotted into the right socket beneath the flipped eye patch, completing the facial assembly. The hand unit confirms Pirate Cove can now be reopened. But this is a virtual recreation, a digital ghost of the physical animatronic that burned in Pizzeria Simulator's flames. The fact that it exists in VR, that players must mend these same failures again and again in simulated environments, suggests that Fritz's possession has transcended even death by fire. His fury is now encoded in software, in games developed by Fazbear Entertainment to downplay their past horrors as fiction, but inadvertently preserving the very hauntings they hoped to bury. Help Wanted 2, released in 2023, continues this virtual existence with Captain Foxy's Pirate Ride, a log flume attraction in the ticket booth mode. Players descend through torch-lit Western-themed galleries, blasting color-coded targets with handheld cannons, while Captain Foxy's gruff pirate voice narrates the journey. "Set sail for adventure and pillage and plunder," he booms as the log sways through set-sail shipwrecks, desert canyons, bright stone saloons, and minecart sequences. Pirate Helpy cutouts stand as sentinels along the route, and shooting them diverts the log into secret paths filled with higher scoring, purple targets, and glitchy lighting effects. This ride, never built in the physical world, exists only in VR simulation, a glimpse of what Fazbear Entertainment might have created if their brand hadn't been destroyed by murders and hauntings. But even here, in a family-friendly log ride, there's judgment. Low scores result in Captain Foxy's roaring jump scare at the ride's end, his disappointment in the player's performance manifesting as aggression. The pirate's standards haven't lowered just because he's virtual. Curse of Dreadbear, the Halloween DLC for Help Wanted, introduces Grimm Foxy, a nightmarish variant with orange-red fur, rips exposing lava-like glowing endoskeleton, shoulder pads jutting like tree branches, and a scythe replacing the traditional hook. His head cavity holds a jack-o'-lantern glow that flickers as he stalks through the haunted corn maze level. Players must collect pumpkin keys while evading his patrols, hiding behind cardboard cutouts when his glow approaches, hoping he runs past and teleports elsewhere rather than detecting their presence. Demonic hums warp the original shanty into guttural growls. Failed evasions end in scythe-swing jump scares that reset the maze with rising aggression. And finally, Ultimate Custom Night, the 2018 standalone title that assembles 50 animatronics into a customizable nightmare, brings Rockstar Foxy into William Afton's presumed purgatory. This is Foxy as tormentor rather than victim, Fritz's spirit now actively punishing the killer in an endless loop of suffering. The mechanic involves Rockstar Foxy's parrot. The green-feathered bird flies across the office screen at intervals determined by Foxy's AI level, and the player must click it before it departs. Successfully clicking summons Rockstar Foxy to the office, where he randomly either helps, resetting temperature, soundproofing the room, granting Faz coins, or attacks with a jump scare. His voice lines punctuate these encounters in a thick pirate accent. "Yar, what can I do for you? Yar, how may I be of service to you?" And when he delivers a jump scare, "Yar, you win some, you lose some," or "Yar, you play with fire and sometimes you get burned." These taunts aren't random dialogue. They're Fritz speaking directly to Afton, mocking the man who lured him with a yellow rabbit suit, who ended his life and stuffed him into a pirate costume, who set in motion decades of haunting that now culminates in this office where every animatronic Afton ever built or destroyed has come to ensure he never escapes punishment. The evolution is complete. Foxy has gone from entertainer to victim, to possessed sentinel to phantom hallucination, to nightmare manifestation, to rental unit, to bait in Henry's trap, to virtual echo, to purgatorial tormentor. And through it all, the core elements remain. The curtain that parts to reveal threat. The yellow eyes that glow with accusation. The hook that swings in attack. The teeth that gleam golden in the dark. The sprint that covers distance faster than any other character. And the power drain that punishes neglect. This is what Fritz became when the marionette placed that Foxy mask on his small, lifeless face in the prize corner of a pizzeria that smelled like cheese and children's laughter. This is what vengeance looks like when a murdered child's spirit has access to endoskeleton servos and camera systems and door controls. This is what happens when an entertainment company values profit over safety. When a killer dons a cheerful costume to lure victims. When bodies are hidden in plain sight and investigations close without justice. Foxy's reclusiveness, that sly isolation in Pirate Cove behind purple curtains, becomes the perfect metaphor for hidden trauma. He's apart from the main band, performing solo, drawing smaller crowds to an intimate space where terrible things can happen unseen. His out-of-order status marks him as damaged, as something that needs to be kept away from the public, a secret shame that Fazbear Entertainment would rather ignore than repair. And his nocturnal emergence, those incremental curtain partings that demand constant camera vigilance, mirror the way buried trauma resurfaces when attention lapses, when the guard lets down their defenses, when the past refuses to stay sealed behind closed curtains. The golden teeth catch light in security feeds like trapped moments of innocence. Those party performances where children cheered, and Fritz was still alive, still human, still capable of going home to his family. But the slack jaw that exposes them tells the truth. Something broke that can never be fixed. Damage too deep for refurbishment. A permanent gape that reveals the mechanical truth beneath the entertainer's facade. Every version of Foxy carries this duality. Withered Foxy's exposed ear and speckled muzzle show the cost of neglect. Years in storage creating decay that parallels how victims are stored away in memory, in police files, in closed cases. Phantom Foxy's burnt translucence suggests trauma that persists even after the physical evidence is destroyed. The ghost that lingers in toxic air and faulty systems. Nightmare Foxy's endless teeth rows transform fear into weapon. The child's terror given form in a closet that demands constant vigilance or delivers instant punishment. Funtime Foxy's sleek rental market polish proves that predatory design can be packaged as progress, as improvement, as something safe for private parties when the underlying mechanics remain unchanged. Rockstar Foxy's accordion and parrot and peg leg attempt to rebrand the pirate as wholesome entertainment again, but his presence in Ultimate Custom Night reveals the impossibility of escaping that history. You can't polish away murder. You can't tune an accordion over the sound of children's screams. You can't teach a parrot to say words that make the dead forget they were stuffed into suits and left to rot in performing stages. The log ride in Help Wanted 2, with its cowboy-pirate hybrid theming and cannon-shooting galleries, represents Fazbear Entertainment's final attempt to rewrite Foxy's story. Make him an adventure, a journey, a fun attraction where the only danger is a low score. But even there, Captain Foxy judges. Even there, failure results in a roaring jump scare. Even there, the pirate's standards cannot be compromised. because Fritz's spirit won't allow it. The child who died doesn't accept sanitized versions of his own haunting. And so the curtain mechanics persist through every iteration. Whether it's physical curtains in FNAF 1, withered hallway advances in FNAF 2, phantom office spawns in FNAF 3, closet stages in FNAF 4, auditorium motion triggers in Sister Location, parrot cues in UCN, or maze teleports in Curse of Dreadbear, the core pattern remains. Foxy appears in stages, demands constant attention, and punishes neglect with swift, power-draining attacks. He is the character who most explicitly rewards vigilance and strategy, who can be managed but never truly defeated, who will always return to Pirate Cove to reset and try again. This makes him beloved by players and theorists alike. Foxy is the skill check, the litmus test of whether you understand FNAF's mechanics or will be overwhelmed by them. Learning to balance camera time on one side with monitoring other threats is the dividing line between surviving Night 5 and failing Night 1. Mastering the flashlight rhythm in FNAF 2's hallway separates veterans from newcomers. And understanding that UCN's parrot click is a gamble rather than a guaranteed help marks the difference between calculated risk-taking and reckless desperation. But beyond gameplay, Foxy represents something crucial in the lore: the individualities of the victims. While the main band stays together on stage, hunting as a group in coordinated patterns, Foxy operates alone. He's the child who got separated, who was targeted individually, who ended up in a different room or at a different time than the others. His isolation in death mirrors potential isolation in the killing process. And his aggression toward purple uniformed guards suggests his last memories are specific, personal, focused on a particular figure rather than general animosity toward adults. The "it's me" hallucinations that appear in FNAF 1, often associated with Golden Freddy, but also triggered by Foxy-related events, might be Fritz trying to communicate something through the possessed machinery. It's me, the child you should be looking for. It's me still trapped in here. It's me, the reason these curtains keep parting. It's me demanding you look, demanding you remember, demanding justice for what was taken. When Henry's completion ending arrives, and the flames consume Pizzeria Simulator's labyrinth, when those ethereal lights ascend, and the gravestones confirm each spirit's name and animatronic pairing, there's a sense of catharsis. Fritz with Foxy, finally acknowledged, finally freed. The curtain parts one last time, not to release an attack, but to release a soul. The sprint down the hallway doesn't end at a door, but continues upward, past the building, past the franchise, past the cycle of reopenings and reclosures, into whatever awaits beyond Fazbear Entertainment's cursed legacy. But the echoes remain, encoded in game files and VR simulations and fan theories and YouTube lore videos. Help Wanted's parts and service bay exists in digital perpetuity, requiring players to repair that slack jaw over and over, to slot those fuses into chest cavities, to witness the hand unit's declaration that Pirate Cove can now be reopened, as if Fritz's haunting is a subscription service that renews with each game installation. The truth is that some stories don't end cleanly. Some spirits leave impressions that outlast their release. Some curtains, once parted, never fully close again. And Foxy, more than any other character in Five Nights at Freddy's, embodies this incompleteness. He's the animatronic who started damaged, whose aesthetic was always tattered and withered even in his prime, whose design incorporated exposure and decay as features rather than bugs. He's been out of order since the beginning, marked with a sign that says, "Don't look here, don't investigate, don't question what's behind these curtains." but we look anyway. We check camera 1C compulsively, flip to it between every other feed, monitor those curtain stages like our lives depend on it. Because in the game's context, they do. And in the lore's context, looking is remembering, checking is acknowledging. Maintaining vigilance is refusing to let the victims be forgotten behind out-of-order signs and corporate non-disclosure agreements and police cases that close without resolution. Every time a player boots up FNAF 1 and sees those purple curtains closed on the first camera flip, every time they watch for the yellow eye peek and the head emergence and the full body exposure before the sprint, they're participating in a memorial. They're keeping Fritz's story alive. They're ensuring that this child, who followed a yellow rabbit and never came home, who was stuffed into a pirate costume and left to perform eternally, who had his identity stripped down to possessing force and player mechanic, is still seen, still heard, still relevant. The distorted shanty that hums from Pirate Cove's speakers isn't just audio design. It's Fritz's voice, boom. Wordless because children that age barely had time to form full sentences before their lives ended, expressing itself through the only medium available, the performance programming of the animatronic that became his prison and his weapon. When that shanty evolves into Captain Foxy's gruff narration, or Rockstar Foxy's pirate-accented taunts, or Grimm Foxy's demonic growls, it's the same voice growing up in death, learning language through possession, finding ways to communicate across the barrier between life and whatever exists after a child's soul binds to machinery. And the hook, that gleaming, curved blade that Foxy raises in every iteration, from classic to withered, to nightmare, to Funtime, to Rockstar, to Grimm, transforms from prop to threat to symbol. It's the weapon Fritz never got to wield in life. The defense he couldn't mount against a killer in a rabbit suit. In death, bound to metal and servos, he finally has the means to fight back. The hook swings at guards and drains power and bangs against doors not out of random malice but specific fury. This is what I needed when I was alive. This is what I use now that I'm dead. This is how I ensure no one else ends up like me, stuffed and hidden and forgotten. Even the peg leg on Rockstar Foxy carries meaning. Pirates lose limbs in their adventures, in battles and storms and encounters with sea monsters. Fritz lost everything in an encounter with a monster wearing a cheerful costume. The peg leg is honest about disability, about loss, about bodies that don't function as they should, about trying to perform and entertain despite damage. Every stomp of that wooden leg on Pizzeria Simulator's stage says, I'm still here, still standing, still performing, even though pieces of me are missing, even though I'm more reconstruction than original, even though everything that made me human is gone. The parrot, that green-feathered companion perched on Rockstar Foxy's shoulder, serves as the final irony. Pirates had parrots to keep them company during long voyages, to provide conversation and companionship in isolation. Fritz's parrot, in Ultimate Custom Night, doesn't provide comfort. It provides judgment. It flies across screens to summon its master for blessing or curse, a messenger between the player and the pirate, between Afton and his victim, between the living and the dead who refuse to rest. When that parrot's eyes glow blue beneath its own tiny eye patch, when it squawks for attention in the chaos of 50 animatronics converging on a single office, it's asking the question that Fritz never got to ask in life. Yar, what can I do for you? Except the you isn't the player. The you is William Afton, trapped in his own mind's creation of punishment, forced to interact with the spirits of children he murdered. And Fritz's answer, whether helpful or harmful, is always the same. You get what you deserve. You win some, you lose some. You played with fire, and now you burn forever in this office where every decision is wrong and every night is endless. As we reach the end of Foxy's timeline, as we stand in the ashes of Pizzeria Simulator's completion, ending with Henry's voice fading and ethereal lights ascending, as we slot the last fuse into the last VR repair bay and hear Pirate Cove can now be reopened, echo through headset speakers, as we collect the final pumpkin key in Curse of Dreadbear's corn maze while Grimm Foxy's jack-o'-lantern glow teleports closer. We understand that this story doesn't have a traditional ending. Fritz might be free. The gravestone says so. The ascending light suggests so. Henry's plan claimed to offer that freedom, but the games continue. The simulations persist. The curtains still part in digital spaces, and yellow eyes still peek through gaps in code. Because Foxy's horror was never just about a possessed animatronic or a murdered child's ghost. It was about what we choose to hide behind out-of-order signs. It was about the dangers we ignore until they sprint down hallways too fast to avoid. It was about power that drains while we're distracted by other threats, until the lights go out and the defenses fail and we're left facing what we should have monitored all along. In every office, in every pizzeria, in every VR simulation, and nightmare bedroom, and underground rental facility, and purgatorial custom night, Foxy's presence asks the same question that Fritz asked in a back room in 1985. Why isn't anyone watching? Why isn't anyone protecting the children who wander away from parties? Why does the animatronic have to enforce vigilance through jump scares when that vigilance should have existed before anyone died? The curtain parts. The eye peeks. The head emerges. The body exposes itself on an empty stage. The sprint begins down a hallway that might be the West Hall of a pizzeria or the corridor of your own memory, where uncomfortable truths advance faster than you can slam doors against them. The hook raises. The teeth gleam golden. The shanty hums distorted through speakers that might be in a security office or in your headphones or in the back of your mind, where Fritz's voice has lived since the moment you first checked camera 1C. And the power drains. Second by second. Percentage by percentage. Because that's what happens when we leave things unchecked. That's what happens when we let curtains stay closed, because it's easier than looking. That's what happens when we mark something out of order and walk away, assuming the problem will stay contained behind purple fabric and a warning sign. Foxy's story is the story of every corner we don't check, every problem we defer, every victim we forget. It's the sprint we don't see coming because we were watching a different camera. It's the impact against a door we closed too late. It's the power that runs out right before we make it to 6 a.m. Welcome to Pirate Cove. The curtains are closing again. Fritz is resetting for another round. The hand unit confirms the repairs are complete, and the show can continue. Will you check the camera in time? Will you notice the eye peek before it becomes a full exposure? Will you preserve enough power to keep the doors sealed when the sprint begins? Or will you join the list of guards who failed, who ran out of light, who learned too late that Foxy's yellow gaze isn't just watching from behind curtains, it's judging from behind death, demanding you remember, demanding you look, demanding you never, ever neglect camera 1C again. The choice is yours. The night is beginning. And somewhere in the darkness of Pirate Cove, crimson fur is stirring. Golden teeth are catching the faint glow of emergency lights. And a hook is rising in preparation for the sprint that never truly ends. Because in the world of Five Nights at Freddy's, in the endless cycle of Fazbear Entertainment's cursed legacy, In the hearts of players who still check that camera compulsively years after first learning the pattern, Foxy is eternal. The tattered pirate sentinel, the withered hallway hunter, the nightmare closet creeper, the phantom office specter, the Funtime auditorium stalker, the Rockstar purgatory tormentor, the Grimm maze dasher, the captain of log ride judgment, the spirit of a child named Fritz who refused to stay hidden, who turned his prison into his weapon, who ensured that every guard, every player, every person who enters these digital spaces understands one fundamental truth. The curtain will part. The sprint will come. And whether you survive or fail depends entirely on whether you were paying attention when it mattered most.